Welcome back. The big story that we continue to track here, India's war hero Arjan Singh has died at the age of 97. He in fact was the only officer of the Indian Air Force to be promoted to 5-star rank. He died of a cardiac arrest. He was admitted earlier in the evening to Army Research and Referral Hospital. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited him. Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and the 3 services chiefs, all of them visited him earlier this evening. He had been brought to hospital in a critical condition, suspected to have suffered a major cardiac arrest earlier in the day, and his death was declared a short while ago. He was 98. A legend, an icon, a man who continued to be an inspiration for several generations of army officers, somebody who became the chief of the Indian Air Force at the young age of 44 and was in charge at the time when India fought a war against Pakistan in 1965, and the stellar role, the absolutely stellar role that he played as India's Air Force chief during the 1965 war against Pakistan is something that he will perhaps be best remembered for. Several tributes have been pouring in for the man. Let's listen into some of them.
We are deeply grieved to hear the sad news of demise of Marshal of the Air Force, Arjan Singh. It's a great loss for the entire country.
I think it's a very sad loss, not only to the Air Force, not only to the Defence Forces, but to the whole country. Arjan Singh may have been a member of the Air Force by his uniform, but he was otherwise a role model for all of us in the defence services, for every airman, every sailor, every soldier, every officer of the defence forces.
An officer who has been an absolute idol for every officer to follow, an officer who lived for his men first, an officer who has served the country for so many years, is definitely going to be looked up to and is definitely going to be idol for many years to come.
All right, former Defence Minister and current Chief Minister of Goa, Manohar Parrikar, on the phone line with us. Mr. Parrikar, your thoughts at the passing of an icon, the Marshal of the Indian Air Force, a man who's remembered for so many things, for being an inspiration to several generations of Air Force officers, and perhaps the most for the stellar role that he performed during the 1965 war against Pakistan.
Besides his 65 contribution, I think he was a real icon and a hero for guiding force for the full defence forces, not only Air Force. In fact, even at this old age, he attended all the functions and took part in them with great interest. I think we have lost a person who would be leader for the armed forces. But in his passing away also, I think he will still be an icon for the...
Clearly an icon, sir, for many generations. Like my colleague Ashish has been pointing out, how everyone who's taken over as the Chief of the Indian Air Force over the decades has gone to seek his blessings, because he was an icon like no other, somebody who dedicated his entire life to India's armed forces, to the Indian Air Force, and in fact, after his retirement, also choosing to donate his wealth for the welfare of the defence forces, something that you don't find many people doing, sir.
Yes, of course. And in fact, I feel lucky that I was able to talk to him on the last occasion I met him. It's a great loss.
Right. So would you want to share with us any of your personal experiences as Defence Minister? You must have interacted with the man. Anything from your personal experiences you want to share?
And it was all general interaction because he was very old. But my personal feeling about it comes from 1965 war. As a not even in my teens, maybe at the age of 9 or 10. He left an impression even at that tender age.
Right, right. And so, what would you say about the fact that he became the chief of the Indian Air Force at the young age of 44, something that's almost unheard of these days, and then he led from the front during that war against Pakistan? I was reading a very interesting story about how when Pakistan had attacked India, he was summoned into the Defense Ministry office and asked, how soon can we be ready? And he said 1 hour, and within the next 1 hour, the Indian Air Force actually struck Pakistani targets. A man who kept his word, a man who knew how to lead from the front.
Yes, of course. And if you compare the fighting instruments of 65, I think India did exceedingly well with a comparatively less capable fighters. So that was an impression which even, as I said, not as a defense minister, but as a young 10-year-old boy, was with me.
All right, Mr. Parikar, thanks so much for speaking to us, sir, and sharing your thoughts with us at the passing of a legend. At this point, I'm told we can also go across to former Air Force Chief Air Marshal P.V. Nayak. Sir, thanks very much for speaking to NewsX. Sir, your thoughts at the passing of the Marshal of the Indian Air Force, and would you want to share with us any of your own personal experiences that you may have had with the icon, with the legend who's inspired just so many? All right, we seem to have lost the line there to Air Marshal P.V. Nayak. We'll try and go across to him in just a moment. But as we've been saying, Marshal of the Indian Air Force Arjan Singh really is perhaps best remembered for his role in the 1965 India-Pakistan war, an icon of the Indian military history. The then Chief of the Air Staff, Arjan Singh, had led a young Air Force into the war with Pakistan in 1965 when he was barely 44 years of age, and with careful planning and unmatched wisdom, he completely outfoxed the Pakistan Air Force. And after a few initial setbacks, the Indian Air Force managing to outmaneuver and outdo the Pakistan Air Force, handing India air superiority to the ground forces. And in fact, just last year, he received the rare honor to have a crucial Air Force base at Panagarh in West Bengal named after him. Military installations are generally not named after individuals, especially when they're alive, but he was somebody who received that rare honor because he was just so special. The last man really to, in fact, be given 5 stars as an Indian Air Force officer. All right, at this point, let's also get some more reactions. We're joined here in the studio by Major General S.P. Sinha, defense expert. All right, Major General Sinha, I'll come to you in just a moment. But before that, I'm told we can go across to Air Marshal Bargora. Sir, thanks so much for speaking to NewsX. Sir, your thoughts at the passing of Marshal of the Air Force, Arjan Singh.
Okay. You want my frank and honest opinion about this gentleman? He was an icon of the nation, but he was a father of Indian Air Force. Plain simple. Professional qualifications of Arjan Singh, I don't have to talk about, they are all documented. I'm going to talk about this human being, this rare human being, of course supported by his lovely wife, who is also late. You don't know as to how they made people so comfortable being who they were. How they made people feel equal to them, or made people that they have come down to our levels. The human touch of this gentleman and his wife was unbelievable. I don't think we have very many people in our country and in this world who have that kind of a touch and a feeling for another human being or human beings is an unbelievable thing, like I was mentioning to someone else. My name is Barbara, and the Air Force calls me Babs. He re-Christianed me from Barbara to Babs Singh. Because I presume he liked me. He changed my whole damn surname to Babs Singh. And how can I put it to you? I think I played golf with him one day, long time back. And then he made me feel that he was my caddy, rather than me being his caddy. That's the kind of a person of his stature,
Right.
of his unbelievable. And people will not understand. People always look for what else professionally he has done, what is it. Oh, that's all documented. But a human being who's donated 2 crores of rupees to Indian Air Force welfare
Exactly.
of his own money.
With his own money. Very few people would do that, sir. Very few people would do that.
I wonder how many people have done it till today. And this gentleman, with always, I was invited over to his house once. His wife was not well. Me and my wife landed up there. He was sitting suited, booted. And his wife came down suited, booted. I mean, so full of regalia, and made us feel so
Right.
humble.
Right.
These qualities, these
They're
qualities.
very rare, sir. The humility of the man and the personal touch, and as you said, your personal experience, and that of so many others, which they will always remember him for. Thanks so much, sir, for speaking to us. We're also joined by Air Marshal Bhushan Gokhale and former Minister of State for Defence Pallam Raju. Mr. Raju, if I could come to you at this point. Sir, your thoughts at the passing of Marshal of the Indian Air Force, Arjan Singh, a man who perhaps will be remembered for generations to come.
Yes, I think it's a big loss to the nation as this is the last of our 5-star generals. And the Marshal of the Air Force was, a personality that one revered. And I have very fond memories of my long association with him, having served in the Ministry of Defence for almost 7 years. And I remember him as a very humble man, despite his stature, and a very affectionate man. Both he and his wife were very, very affectionate. And I remember him as someone who did not hesitate to speak his mind as far as what needed to be done for the nation, for shoring up our defenses, whatever augmentation had to be done for the capabilities of the Indian Air Force. And I will miss him because, I had a personal rapport with him, and we caught up on formal occasions several times. And I think India has lost one of its greatest soldiers who've seen the entire history of the Indian Air Force dating back to when it was a part of the Royal Air Force.
Right. And also, sir, many have talked about how he wasn't just a legend of the Indian Air Force, but how he was an amazing humanitarian, somebody who donated his personal wealth, I'm told an amount to the tune of 2 crore from his personal finances to the welfare of the Indian Defence Forces. Perhaps not too many people would have done that, sir, in their lifetime.
I think like any true leader, he was empathetic to the cause of his colleagues and especially the junior servicemen. And I think that's what prompted him to do that. And he did not hesitate to speak his mind for the welfare of the soldiers and the persons below officers' rank. And like I said before, he did not hesitate to speak about what needed to be done to augment our capabilities. Apart from all that, he was a great human being. I will miss him. My personal recollection is that he invited me for his 60th wedding anniversary. He had invited me and my wife. But since we shared our wedding anniversary, I could not make it because I was celebrating ours in Hyderabad. And he would remind me often saying, maybe some year we have to celebrate it together.
Well, certainly, sir, many personal stories there that different people will remember him by, but the one thing that everyone will remember him for is the absolute icon that he was and will continue to be. Arjan Singh may be gone, but the legend will live on. Palam Raju, thanks so much for sharing your personal stories with us. On that note, welcome back. Our big focus continues to be the passing of Marshal of the Indian Air Force, Arjan Singh, a man who died at the age of 98. He suffered a major cardiac arrest earlier today. The Prime Minister, the Defence Minister and the three service chiefs all visited him earlier this evening. He was taken to hospital, the Army's Research and Referral Hospital here in the capital, in a critical condition, and he was declared dead about an hour and a half ago. Tributes have been pouring in from all parts of the country for the great man who is remembered for so many things. Let's quickly get a perspective from our studio guest. Major General S.P. Sinha is with us here. Sir, your thoughts on the passing of Arjan Singh, a legend and an icon for so many.
First of all, I would like to pray to Almighty to give departed soul peace. Secondly, I would like to bow down my head in respect, in honor of 5-star Field Marshal equivalent General rank officer, Air Chief Marshal, ex-Air Chief Marshal Arjan Singh. He was an icon, a role model of how a military leader should be. I want to tell you one thing, that the qualities of a military leader is very complex. He has to be tough, yet be humane. Both these qualities cannot run in parallel, cannot run in tandem. Here is a perfect example of an Air Force officer who had immense qualities on both these fronts, and he won heart and respect of all rank and file of Indian Air Force. Now, to get back to certain facts and figures, he was born on 15th April 1919 and died today, 16th April 17, at the age of 98. He joined Air Force at the age of 19 in 1938. He was commissioned from Royal Air Force College and took active part in Second World War on Burma front. 1964, he became 3rd Air Force Chief. He was awarded Distinguished Flying Cross, DFC, and also awarded Padam Vibhushan in 1965. For extraordinary and exemplary devotion to duty beyond the call of duty, he was awarded Padam Vibhushan in 1965. To talk of his diplomatic assignments, it would be apt to mention that in 1971, he was nominated as Ambassador to Switzerland. He was High Commissioner to Kenya in 1974. He was Indian Ambassador to Vietnam and then Lieutenant Governor of Delhi. And it is an honor that normally an Air Force station is not named after any particular individual. A great honor was given to this gentleman when Air Force Station Panagar was named as Air Force Station Air Chief Marshal Arjan Singh. You see, in military we are taught that we have to lead from the front. We have to give personal example. You cannot say something and do something else. So therefore, here is a person. He was always, he gave a message to all his rank and file, officers, men, that he was approachable. He would listen to them. And if they had a just cause, then he would address those problems in totality. He was kind, he was benevolent, he was gracious. He is the only person in Air Force till date who from his own funds has donated rupees 2 crores to Indian Air Force Welfare Fund. This is the financial side of his kindness. He had a beautiful wife, very loving wife, and very caring wife, who was an epitome of strength behind such great Field Marshal. And let me tell you, the examples of Air Chief Marshal, if every officer who becomes a commissioned officer in Air Force or even in Army or Navy, if we just try to copy or learn few qualities, only few qualities, even 10-20% from a person like Air Chief Marshal, we would do yeoman service to Armed Forces of India, and it would be an excellent example of the type of leadership that Indian Armed Forces possesses.
Right, so absolutely. There's so much to learn from the man, not just during his lifetime, but even in his death. His immense contribution to the Indian Defence Forces are really unparalleled. Perhaps it would take an entire generation for us to find somebody who can even come close to contributing what he did to this country and to this country's defence forces. So stay with us. We'll come back to you in just a moment. But at this point, let's cut across to my colleague Mohit Bhatt, who's joining us live from outside Army's Research and Referral Hospital here in the national capital. This is where Marshal of the Air Force Arjan Singh breathed his last. Mohit, there were a string of high-profile visitors to Marshal of the Indian Air Force Arjan Singh earlier this evening when he was brought in a very critical condition. We saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting him, Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, as well as the three chiefs of the defence forces. Give us a sense of what you're witnessing right now. Is there still a steady stream of visitors there?
Well, yes, as soon as the news came out that Marshal Arjan Singh suffered cardiac arrest, there was spree of VIP visitors in RR hospital. Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself came here in the afternoon and he met Marshal Arjan Singh, and then Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman also came, and after meeting Arjan Singh, she briefed the media and she stated that he was in critical condition and he is in the ICU, and then all the Army Chief, Navy Chief and Chief of Air Staff also came over here. Now, and then we saw how there were various tweets from the political parties wishing him best, wishing him luck for the speedy recovery. But then around 8 p.m. the news came out that he is no more, and we are right now outside the main gate of the RR hospital. Now, if you can see, the security has been bit briefed up over here because we expect that the senior most officials of the Army, Navy and Air Force and also the politicians could also visit over here. Now, just 2 hours back, there was this massive security over here because it was believed that many politicians, many senior officers could also come and meet Air Marshal Arjan Singh. But then now the news has come out, the security is still there. Now it remains to be seen that whether politicians or the senior officials will come today or whether they will come tomorrow to pay their last respects to this great man, one of the most decorated Air Force officer India ever had. And then Prime Minister Modi, after his death, also tweeted that when Prime Minister Modi came to RR hospital to meet him, Arjan Singh tried to stand up from his bed and tried to salute him, and such was his discipline of an officer. So clearly India lost a great soldier today, and then many of the politicians are giving their condolence messages through tweets, through Facebook, and it is expected that many of the politicians and the senior officials of both, rather from Army, from Air Force and from Navy will visit. Now, there are strings of cars going inside of the Army and the Air Force and Navies, but it remains to be seen whether some senior politicians will visit him right now or not. Back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Mohit, for that. We will come back to you later for more. As Mohit mentioned there have been tributes pouring in for the man from different parts of the country. Many have, in fact, spoken to NewsX and conveyed their condolences to the family. We've also, in fact, seen several tweets from several ministers, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's, in fact, at this point go across to my colleague and our Strategic Affairs editor, Ashish Singh, for more on this. Ashish, as we said, tributes pouring in from all parts of the country. Earlier in the evening, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Marshal of the Indian Air Force and was, in fact, amongst the first to also tweet his tributes when the news of his passing came in.
That's right, Neha. Prime Minister Modi has tweeted 5 back-to-back tweets in respect of Marshal of the Air Force, late Arjan Singh. And I quote Prime Minister Modi here. One of the first tweets he did with the pictures of him with the Marshal of the Air Force, late Arjan Singh. At least 3 pictures there you can see. There are 5 tweets that Prime Minister Modi has sent out. India mourns the unfortunate demise of Marshal of the Indian Air Force, Arjan Singh. We remember his outstanding service to the nation. The second tweet mentions Marshal of the Air Force, Arjan Singh's determined focus on capacity building in the IAF added great strength to our defense capabilities. India will never forget the excellent leadership of Marshal of the Air Force, Arjan Singh, in 1965 war, when the IAF saw substantial action. The second last tweet mentions, sometimes back, I met him who, despite his ill health, tried to get up to salute, even though I said no. Such was his soldier discipline. The last tweet, my thoughts are with his family and those mourning the demise of a distinguished air warrior and fine human, Marshal of the Air Force, Indian Air Force, Arjan Singh, rest in peace. Not only the Prime Minister Modi, but the President of the country, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, has also tweeted in respect of Marshal of the Air Force, late Arjan Singh.
Ashish, stay with us. Stay with us. We'll come back to you in just a moment as tributes continue to pour in from the Prime Minister, the President, and many others. We're also, in fact, now getting some reactions right here on NewsX. Former Air Force Chief Air Marshal Fali Homi Major with us. Sir, your thoughts at this point at the passing of Arjan Singh, a man whose achievements and whose contribution to Indian Defence Forces perhaps will remain unparalleled.
Absolutely. You know, the country and the Indian Air Force has truly lost an icon today. An air warrior of proportions which are very, very difficult to match. And to me personally, he's the man who had pinned my wings on my chest and commissioned me into the Indian Air Force in 1967. I shall ever remain grateful to him, not only for that occasion, but for all that he's done for the Indian Air Force. His outstanding contribution starting from the early days, fighting the tribals, one of the first people to fly one of the first aeroplanes of the Indian Air Force, the YT. Later on, his contribution in World War II in the Burma front, and then, of course, his glorious contribution as an air chief in the 1965 war. And after that, when he took over as the chief of the Indian Air Force, from then onwards, what you see, or where you see the Indian Air Force today, is very much because of his contribution, his visionary thinking, and all that he did for the Indian Air Force. That is as far as his air warrior duties are concerned. And after he became the Marshal of the Indian Air Force, one of the most outstanding philanthropic deed of his, he contributed and started a trust in the Air Force called the Marshal of the Indian Air Force and Mrs. Teji Singh Trust, in which he contributed 2 crores of rupees to the Indian Air Force. And I remember when I was the chief and the 6th Pay Commission had gone through, he got his areas as the Marshal of the Air Force of about 60 lakhs of rupees. And he rang me up one day and he said, "What the hell do I do with this money? I don't need it. And I'm going to put this back into the Marshal Arjan Singh Trust." This was the kind of man he was, and the country and the Indian Air Force shall never ever forget him. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your views with us at this point. Former Air Force Chief Air Marshal Fali Major sharing with us his thoughts and some of his personal experiences with the legend who is no more. Several tributes really pouring in from all parts of the country. The Home Minister Rajnath Singh tweeting saying that India has lost a hero. President Ramnath Kovind tweeting his condolences to the family and his tributes to the man. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also tweeting saying, "My thoughts are with his family and those mourning the demise of a distinguished air warrior and fine human being, Marshal of the Indian Air Force Arjan Singh." In fact, the Prime Minister then going on to say, "Sometime back I met him in the hospital and despite his ill health, he tried to get up to salute even though I said no." Such was this soldier and his discipline. So many incredible stories about the man, a man who touched so many lives. Not only was his contribution to the Indian Air Force absolutely incredible, to India's defense forces absolutely unmatched, but the way in which he touched so many lives. Every Air Force chief in this country in the last 6 decades has sought inspiration from Arjan Singh, has sought his blessings. Every time somebody took charge as the Air Force chief, the one thing they did was to go and seek the blessings of the Marshal of the Indian Air Force. Such was the aura of the man. Such really was the respect for him. All right, let's go back to our studio guest, Major General S.P. Sinha. At this point, sir, you were talking about how his contribution remains unparalleled. And, you know, it's amazing. So many personal stories that we are hearing from people. We've been talking to former defense ministers. We've been talking to former, Air Force chiefs. Each one of them has a personal story to recount about how this man touched their lives.
Many people are born on this earth. They fade away, unremembered, unnoticed. Here is a person who has written his name in the annals of history, not only in India, but also abroad. Here is a person who has left behind a story, an example, a model, an icon role for future military leadership to copy, emulate, and lead armed forces in an exemplary manner. He has left behind a very, very rich legacy. It is a proud moment for all his family members, all his parents who must have left this earth, but all his family members who are hailing from his family, that such a great person was born in the family. And I remember that our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, in one of the functions, he walked up to ex-Air Chief Marshal and 5-star Field Marshal equivalent to General, and when the Field Marshal wanted to get up, he told him to sit down and offered him sweets. And here we see him taking some award and Padam Vibhushan, and in spite of the difficulty that he is facing in walking properly, here is a great soldier who is saluting Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, the President of India, because he is not saluting Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. He is saluting the President of India, which is an institution. And we in armed forces are taught how to respect institutions, democratic and other institutions of the country. Let me tell you, we in armed forces, the officer cadre and even men, go through a very, very tight schedule, a very tough regimen, where a lot of leadership qualities are taught. But everybody does not imbibe everything that is taught. Everybody does not reach the zenith of leadership, qualities that Air Chief Marshal, ex-Air Chief Marshal Arjan Singh imbibed. He was an epitome, an example of human kindness, humane touch with an iron fist. So such examples are rare. Such examples come once in many, many decades, and he was one of them who came in many, many decades on the horizon, on the radar of Indian Air Force. And talking about his contribution in Second World War, and also in 1965 war, when Pakistan launched Operation Grand Slam in Cham sector, and the Pakistani who had bought patent tanks from America, they were speeding very fast, and a dagger-like position, threatening position they had acquired. Here was an Air Force officer who risked his life and set exemplary example. Let me tell you, if armored thrust was able to penetrate the Cham sector, hell would have let loose, and they could have reached Delhi within matter of days. And it was because of the contribution of Air Chief Marshal Arjan Singh that such danger was not only thwarted, but we also were successful in halting the advancing patent tanks of our Pakistan Army in Operation Grand Slam, and we defeated Pakistan. We brought down Pakistan on its knees. They begged for mercy, and although militarily and diplomatically and how we should have exploited that 1965 situation, we could not do that. And Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri lost his life in a very, very suspicious circumstances. And it won't be proper for me to comment what was the circumstance which led to Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri, but the pity is that even his body was not subjected to post-mortem. So that there lies the secrecy and conspiracy. So coming back to Air Chief Marshal Arjan Singh, you see his face. He appears to be an epitome of kindness, confidence, kindness, love, affection, and the top quality military leadership emanating from his body and from his body language. I think if in the annals of the history, few qualities have to be, few outstanding air marshals, air chief marshals, generals like Sam Manekshaw, they have to be listed. He will be one of the top names to be mentioned in those annals of history. And if not only Air Force, whole Indian Armed Forces are proud of such a great soldier, such a soldier who has set others who are in service today to follow, that it will take a lot of hard work, lot of burning of midnight oil to reach even 10% of what ex-Air Chief Marshal Arjan Singh was.
Well, clearly very, very difficult to match what he's done for this country, what he's done for India's defense forces. He is a man who will not be forgotten. His contribution cannot be forgotten. Let's take a quick break at this point, but we'll be back with lots more on the tributes that are pouring in for Marshal of the Indian Air Force, Arjan Singh.
Marshal of the Indian Air Force, Arjan Singh, has led an exemplary life as a soldier. He has fought several wars and became the Air Chief at a very young age of 48. He retired in 1970, but till only a few months ago, he kept himself active and would participate in every public function that he was invited to, brought in a great sense and spirit of nationalism by his sheer conduct. I remember the Prime Minister telling him that he shouldn't get up, frail that he was because of age, to salute him, but he would insist And the moment he stood up, you could see that his spine was erect, and he stood up proud as a good soldier. The conduct and the exemplary nature in which he conducted himself is something which will be remembered for generations. And in fact, even as I speak about generations getting motivated by him, he comes from a family of people who have his father, his grandfather, his great-grandfather have all been in military service, in the defense of the nation, in the defense of India, that generations after generations that family had served, and that tradition Marshal Arjan Singh also kept up. It's a big loss for the country, big loss for people who are looking for icons from whom motivation can be an energy for the youth. When youth search for who's that kind of a person who we can look up to, here was this excellent exemplary soldier in Marshal Arjan Singh.
You had gone with the Prime Minister to see him in the hospital. So what was Prime Minister's words about him?